Every man has felt it. The subtle games, the questions that feel like traps, the moods that shift like storms. What if I told you these tests are not random at all? Machiavelli himself would say they are nature's brutal exam to separate rulers from the ruled. And tonight, I'll show you how to stop failing them. Machiavelli, were he among us today, would observe with cold clarity that men are often oblivious to the quiet examinations women conduct every day, at every turn. These tests are subtle, embedded in the mundane exchanges of daily life, and yet they carry the weight of centuries of biological and psychological strategy. To Machiavelli, human nature never changes, only the costumes do. He would tell you that a woman's testing of a man's strength is neither new nor malicious, but a timeless function of nature's ruthless selection. At the core, it is not about trickery, but about security and survival. In the same way a king must test the loyalty of his advisors or the courage of his generals, a woman must test the strength of a man's mind, the depth of his spine, and the resilience of his character. In the world Machiavelli understood, power was never safe. It was always on trial. So too is masculine strength in the eyes of a woman. She will not declare her tests openly. She will not announce, "Today, I shall examine your resolve." Instead, it comes wrapped in small questions and gentle provocations, an offhand remark about another man's ambition, a delay in responding to your words, an intentional withdrawal of warmth to observe your reaction. She will measure your value, not in how loudly you profess your love, but in how calmly you stand when she challenges it. The average man, foolish in his illusions, imagines that love means surrendering unconditionally. He mistakes devotion for obedience. He believes that if he bends over backwards at every sign of disapproval, if he quickly smooths over every frown and stifles every complaint, he will secure her affection forever. In truth, he secures only her disdain. A woman cannot respect a man who collapses before her tests. She may tolerate him, she may use him, but in the privacy of her thoughts, she will know that he is no ruler of himself. A man who begs for approval fails the first and most vital test, to hold his frame when his authority is questioned. Machiavelli knew that a prince who is easily manipulated becomes the puppet of his court. Likewise, a man who is easily swayed becomes the puppet of his woman's moods. She will sense this weakness long before he does, for her eyes are trained by nature to spot the fault lines in a man's armor. When she tests you, she does not want you to crumble, she wants you to prove that you cannot be moved. These tests take many forms. Sometimes they arrive as disagreements over trivial matters. Sometimes they arrive as cold silences. Sometimes they take the shape of subtle comparisons, praising the virtues of another man just enough to watch your reaction. The uninitiated man reacts like a cornered animal. He tries to convince, to plead, to chase away the discomfort with flowers and empty promises. He throws gifts at the problem, desperate to buy back her warmth. But Machiavelli would scoff at such behavior, for nothing is more pitiful than a ruler who bribes his subjects to love him, rather than commanding their loyalty through strength. Consider this in the court of the powerful. Every word spoken, every glance exchanged, every whisper in the shadows is a test of your composure. The prince who flies into a rage at the first rumor loses the respect of his people. The man who erupts or pleads when a woman tests him loses the respect of the very one he wishes to hold. Machiavelli would remind you that composure is the fortress no siege can easily breach. The moment you reveal that your emotions can be manipulated, you become the plaything of a cunning court, or, in this case, the plaything of a cunning woman's hidden doubts. Even good women test. This is not the realm of wicked temptresses alone. The loving wife, the loyal partner, the quiet companion, all are driven by the same ancient imperative. For what woman wishes to entrust her life, her body, perhaps the very future of her children, to a man who trembles at the first gust of wind? In her eyes, a man must be a castle wall tested by storms but never falling. His words must be worth more than his excuses. His backbone must be stronger than his desire for her approval. This is the root of trust and devotion. The woman may never speak of it, but she feels it in her bones. Machiavelli would whisper to you that the man who cannot see these tests will wander blind through the battlefield of love, forever ambushed, forever conquered. He will ask himself why her eyes have turned cold, why her touch has grown distant, why her laughter now comes more freely for another man. He will not understand that he failed when he gave up his authority to avoid a quarrel, when he made her the queen and himself the jester. The subtle art of feminine tests is therefore not an act of betrayal, but an invitation to prove yourself worthy of her loyalty, to show that you cannot be broken by fleeting storms, to remind her that you stand firm even when the ground trembles. To Machiavelli, this is not cynicism but reality, and reality he knew well. is the only kingdom a wise man truly conquers. In Machiavelli's ruthless examination of human nature, he never spared the Nervi prince who mistook good intentions for power. So too would he have no pity for the man who misinterprets devotion for self-betrayal. The man who kneels before a woman's every whim, hoping to buy her loyalty with his constant compliance, only reveals to her the soft underbelly of his character. He exposes the very weakness she tests for, hoping not to find, yet find it she does. Not because she is cruel, because she must know if the man she gives herself to is worthy of her submission or only fit to become her subordinate. This is the paradox that confuses so many men. They believe love demands that they become endlessly agreeable, that they must silence their instincts, stifle their own desires, and bend in every storm. But Machiavelli would remind you that no kingdom survives when the ruler hands over the keys to his subjects. A woman's respect is not bought with words, flowers, or frantic promises that you will never upset her again. It is won through the demonstration that you stand for something greater than her approval. The weak man sees her tears and collapses. He hears her complaints and rushes to explain himself, tripping over apologies that sound more pathetic than sincere. He cannot bear her disapproval, so he tries to mold himself into whatever shape pleases her most in the moment. But what pleases her in the moment disgusts her in the end. She may accept his surrender, yet in her mind she counts it as a secret failure. She feels less safe, not more loved, for she sees that this man has no spine to stand on. Machiavelli would scoff at the man who boasts about how he would conquer nations, yet cannot even hold his frame when his lover tests his patience. The man who bows before a woman's moods becomes her servant, not her king. Weakness is a stench that lingers in every word he utters. It is betrayed when he cannot say no, when he cannot walk away from disrespect, when he fears that losing her would be the end of him. It is betrayed when he places her happiness above his principles, telling himself he is noble when in truth he is only convenient. Women sense this betrayal instinctively. They may not articulate it in words, but they feel it deep in their bones. Here stands a man who fears the storm more than he commands it. He may be pleasant, he may be generous, but he is not worthy of surrender, and so she does not surrender. She tests him again, hoping for strength this time, but instead finds more submission. Her disappointment grows in secret chambers of her heart that he will never see, until one day she can no longer look at him without contempt. To understand how weakness betrays you, look to the nature Machiavelli studied so well. In the courts of Florence, a prince who showed mercy too freely, who forgave too quickly, who trusted too easily, soon found his head separated from his shoulders. Power once surrendered is not easily reclaimed. Likewise, when a man shows that his backbone can be bent at will, he will never again stand straight in her eyes. The tragedy is that this weakness often comes disguised as virtue. Men convince themselves that they are being kind, that they are avoiding conflict, that they are being good partners by never saying no. They think their endless understanding will bind her closer. In reality, it sets her free to search for a stronger hand to hold. Machiavelli would advise you that there is no shame in being tested. There is only shame in failing the test because you fear confrontation. A woman does not test to be cruel. She tests because nature demands that she does not build her house upon sand. She wants to know that your word means something, that your values stand firm even when she tries to shake them. When you betray your own principles just to soothe her temporary emotion, you show her that your loyalty to her is greater than your loyalty to yourself. And paradoxically, this makes you unworthy of her loyalty in return. She may enjoy the power for a time, but soon she will resent the man who has none of his own. Every apology made to avoid conflict, every promise given out of fear, every sacrifice that denies your own worth is a stone removed from the fortress you must be. When enough stones are gone, the walls collapse, and the ruler becomes the beggar at his lover's gate. Machiavelli knew that the prince must be both loved and feared. But if he cannot be both, then it is better to be feared than loved. The same is true for a man in love. If you cannot be both strong and tender, better to remain strong, for tenderness without strength is an invitation for ruin. Weakness is a silent betrayal, and though you may think you hide it behind pretty gestures and flowery words, a woman's eyes are sharper than you can imagine. She will always see what you hope to conceal. Machiavelli, the master of human observation, would have looked at the modern man and laughed quietly at his tragic confusion. For he would see that countless men today, in the realm of love and courtship, betray themselves in the same way the feeble rulers of his time lost kingdoms. By giving up their authority piece by piece, all in the name of appearing good. They believe, quite earnestly, that devotion is measured by how quickly they kneel, how swiftly they silence their own voice to please another. Yet Machiavelli would warn you that a ruler who lives to please his subjects becomes a slave in his own court, and a man who lives only to please a woman becomes pitiful in her eyes. Weakness is not announced, it is revealed in small, desperate acts that expose a man's fear of disapproval and rejection. Each act, however small, is a stone removed from the castle wall of his character. It begins innocently. A man thinks to himself, if I am always available, she will see how much I care. He cancels plans, breaks his own rules, rearranges his life to orbit hers like a faint star clinging to a planet. In his mind, this makes him noble, selfless, devoted. But to her instincts, sharper and older than any civilized custom, it reads as a signal: this man fears my absence more than he fears losing himself. He fears losing me more than he values his own time. She may smile and thank him, but deep within, a silent ledger is kept. Here is one who will trade his crown for my smile. How can I follow such a man when he follows me like a stray dog? Machiavelli understood that fear is the hidden architect of downfall. A man ruled by the fear of disapproval will betray himself at every test, without even recognizing it as betrayal. See how weakness shows itself not in grand gestures but in countless subtle acts. He tries to buy back her warmth with gifts and apologies when she grows cold. He explains himself endlessly, thinking that more words will heal the wound that his lack of backbone has caused. He says yes when he wants to say no. He sacrifices his principles to secure her fleeting approval, believing he is preserving love, when in truth he is burying it alive under the rubble of his self-abandonment. A woman may not voice it openly, but she cannot help but feel it. Here is a man who does not stand for anything larger than his need for me, and a man who stands for nothing becomes a pawn in the game of feminine nature. Tested over and over, each time failing a little more surely than before. Consider a man who, when faced with her anger, crumbles into pleading. He floods her phone with desperate words. He swears he will change, not from deep principle but from fear. He mistakes his own panic for devotion. Machiavelli would say that nothing is more dangerous than a prince who panics at rumors or threats. Panic invites rebellion. Panic spreads like plague through the court. Likewise, a woman sees that panic in her man and knows, though she may not speak it, that he is no ruler. He has lost control of himself, and therefore he can never control the world they must face together. She may comfort him in the moment. Nature is cunning that way, but her respect, once surrendered, is rarely restored. Do you think this does not happen to strong men? It happens precisely because strong men forget that strength must be maintained through discipline. The moment you allow fear of loss to dictate your actions, you become governed by that fear. Machiavelli would remind you that power given is power lost. A man who fears losing a woman more than losing his principles will lose both. She will test him again, more harshly, hoping to find a remnant of the strength she first admired. If she finds none, her loyalty dies long before her body ever leaves his bed. Weakness is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet sigh, when you allow her to speak to you with contempt without consequence. Sometimes it is the way you say, "It's okay," when you know you should draw a line. Sometimes it is the softness in your spine when you should stand firm, the silence in your throat when you should speak the truth even if it burns. Machiavelli would tell you that subjects must know their prince will not flinch from hard decisions. So too must a woman feel that her man does not fear her disapproval more than he fears betraying himself. There is a kind of betrayal worse than betrayal of another. It is the betrayal of your own worth, your own word, your own authority. This is what weakness does to you. It plants seeds of self-doubt that blossom into actions that beg for permission rather than command respect. Women are drawn to strength, not because they wish to be conquered in cruelty, because they wish to feel safe in the presence of a man who will not bend like grass in every wind. The man who cannot say no, who cannot risk conflict, who lives to soothe every storm she stirs, is not her rock but her puppet. A man who imagines he can avoid all conflict by pleasing a woman endlessly has never understood the nature of loyalty or desire. He confuses submission with security. He confuses self-sacrifice with love. In truth, no woman wants to be the ruler of a man she tests. She wants to find in him something unshakable, a fortress she can lean against when her own storms come. And that fortress is built not from empty words or frantic appeasement, but from an unwavering backbone. Machiavelli knew that men who do not hold the line will always be ruled by those who do. Machiavelli, who dissected power as a surgeon dissects flesh, would have said this about a woman's tests: they are neither traps nor punishments, but invitations to reveal who you truly are. To the untrained mind, they feel like betrayals, as if she is setting snares just to watch you stumble. But the wise man, armed with the mind of a strategist, understands these tests as opportunities, proving grounds to demonstrate strength, self-command, and an unwavering commitment to his own principles. If weakness is betrayal, then mastery is triumph. And triumph does not come from resisting the game, but from playing it better than she imagines possible. This is the quiet art Machiavelli would whisper to you. Do not resent her tests, for they are the forge that tempers your steel. A woman's tests, subtle as they may be, are relentless. They show up in the questions she asks that seem designed to catch you off guard, in the playful comparisons to other men, in the moments she withdraws her warmth just to see if you will chase her like a lost dog. These moments can feel infuriating to the man who has not mastered himself. He thinks, why is she doing this to me? Why can't she just trust that I care? But the truth, as Machiavelli would teach, is that trust must be earned through consistent demonstrations of inner authority. A woman does not test you because she does not care. She tests you because she wants to believe that you are unshakable. When you fail, it is not her disappointment that wounds you. It is your own exposure of a weakness you thought you could hide. So how does a man turn these trials into triumphs? First, by expecting them. The ruler who knows his enemies plot against him sleeps more soundly than the fool who believes everyone loves him unconditionally. Likewise, the man who accepts that tests are a constant element of a woman's nature no longer fears them, he prepares for them. He does not panic when she withdraws her warmth or challenges his authority with sly comments or deliberate delays. He remains grounded in himself. He does not explain himself excessively or rush to erase her doubts with desperate words. He knows that composure, not chatter, is the answer to doubt. Machiavelli would point out that the wise prince never reveals the full extent of his power or emotion. He keeps a part of himself veiled. This same principle applies to the man who wishes to pass a woman's tests. If you reveal every fear, every insecurity, every petty jealousy, you give her the tools to dismantle you. The man who triumphs turns mystery into an ally. When she tries to provoke you, you smile calmly, unfazed. When she withdraws, you do not chase blindly, but give her the space to come back on your terms. You show her, through action not pleading, that your life does not orbit around her whims. This is not cruelty. This is a display of self-respect that commands admiration. Many men fail these tests because they fear losing the woman more than losing themselves. But the paradox is that a woman only truly surrenders to the man who does not fear her departure. This does not mean you treat her as disposable. Quite the opposite. It means you stand so firmly in your sense of worth that you cannot be manipulated by her moods. When she sees that her games cannot shake you, her loyalty deepens, her respect grows. She realizes that your strength is not a mask you wear, but the core of who you are. Consider how Machiavelli advised his prince to be both loved and feared. In relationships, this balance translates to a blend of warmth and boundaries. You must be able to give her love, laughter, and protection while also commanding her respect through unshakable principles. If she speaks to you with contempt, you do not respond with matching cruelty or needy appeasement. You correct her calmly, reminding her that you will not tolerate disrespect. If she tests you by flirting with your rival, you do not collapse into jealous rages or pitiful begging. You show her that you are willing to walk away rather than compete for your own throne. The man who turns tests into triumphs understands the value of indifference to trivial games. This indifference is not coldness. It is the serene confidence that comes from knowing your worth is not up for debate. She may push, she may pull, but the fortress of your self-respect remains unmoved. And this immovability is what draws her closer. Machiavelli knew that people crave the security of a strong ruler. Likewise, a woman craves the security of a man whose backbone cannot be bent by her fleeting doubts. What separates the ruler from the ruled is the willingness to lose what does not serve his authority. A man who fears loss more than weakness is always weak. The man who welcomes her tests as proof of his resolve finds that each trial makes him stronger. He does not hold grudges against her nature. He does not scold her for being what she is. Instead, he uses every test to reinforce the message: I am not here to chase you, to beg for your mercy, to shrink myself so you can feel powerful. I am here to stand as I am. And if you wish to stand beside me, you will follow my lead. Turning tests into triumphs is therefore not about outwitting her or beating her at her own game. It is about embodying a truth so solid that the game itself dissolves. She tests you to see if you are the storm or the shelter. She tests you to see if your word holds firm under pressure. She tests you to see if your loyalty to yourself outweighs your fear of losing her approval. Each time you pass, you rise in her eyes. Each time you fail, you fall. And unlike the courtiers in Machiavelli's world, who could conspire to regain lost favor, A man who fails too often finds that no words or gestures can rebuild what is weakness. Destroyed a woman's nature does not punish you for strength, it rewards you for it in the only currency that matters, her deep, unwavering respect. To turn these tests into triumphs is to prove that you are the rare man she cannot bend, the rare fortress that does not crumble, the rare ruler of yourself. Machiavelli, with his unblinking eye for the brutal truths of human nature, would remind you of this. You are either respected or pitied, feared or forgotten, crowned or cast aside. There is no comfortable middle ground for the man who wishes to be more than a plaything in the court of feminine nature. He would see clearly that many men, craving softness and praise, willingly trade power for the fleeting comfort of a woman's approval. They wish to be adored without paying the price of command. They want love without the weight of self-mastery. But nature, ever the cruel but fair judge, gives power only to those who can hold it. The man who fears losing a woman more than losing himself is already ruled, already dethroned in his own castle. Machiavelli would tell you that such a man lives under an illusion of choice when in reality, he is bound by invisible strings, each one tied to his own cowardice. Observe how pity takes root in a woman's heart when she senses that a man's backbone is made of paper. At first, she may enjoy the power. She may even test him further, hoping he will snap out of his submission and remember the strength that once drew her in. But when he folds under pressure, when he allows disrespect, when he lets her moods dictate his truth, something in her gaze changes. It hardens, dims, then turns away altogether. She cannot help it. Her instincts recoil from a man who cannot stand his ground. Pity replaces desire, contempt replaces admiration, and once a woman feels pity for a man who should be her rock, she cannot be coaxed back into true loyalty. She may stay beside him out of convenience or comfort or fear of loneliness, but her heart will wander. Machiavelli, ever the realist, would note that loyalty born of pity is loyalty on borrowed time. What does it mean to hold power instead of pity? It means you choose self-respect over approval, even when that choice brings conflict, distance, or the risk of loss. The ruler who fears losing the throne more than losing his integrity will cling desperately to the shifting moods of his court, bribing nobles with gifts and empty promises, hoping to be liked. But the ruler who knows that power flows from unwavering resolve never bows to gossip, sedition, or sudden storms. He lets traitors reveal themselves through their betrayal and then banishes them without remorse. The same is true in the realm of relationships. The man who fears losing a woman's affection becomes her servant, not her equal. He cannot stand tall because he does not stand on anything solid. The woman tests him, finds his foundation hollow, and so she sits upon his throne while he kneels at her feet, begging for scraps of affection. Machiavelli would have laughed at the modern man's illusion that endless kindness, untempered by boundaries, will inspire loyalty. He would say plainly that people do not love the prince who is generous, but the prince who is strong enough to protect his kingdom. A woman, though soft in voice and delicate in frame, holds a mind that seeks the same security. Her tests are the barricades she throws against your fortress to see if the walls hold. When they crumble, she does not rejoice. She mourns the strength she hoped to find. She cannot build her trust upon pity, and yet the man who has made himself pitiable will often delude himself, believing that his sacrifices prove his love. He does not see that they prove only his fear. To hold power is to show, again and again, that your word is final because you live by it first. You do not make idle threats or empty promises. You do not bark orders you cannot enforce. When you draw a boundary, you enforce it without rage or apology. This does not mean you rule through cruelty or coldness. Machiavelli himself warned that cruelty must be calculated and rare, or it breeds rebellion. It means you make it clear that your self-respect is non-negotiable. If she tests you with disrespect, you do not shout or sulk or lecture her like a scolded child. You show her that there is no place for contempt in your kingdom. She may choose to remain within your walls, enjoying the safety and freedom your strength provides. Or she may choose to leave, but she will not rule over you through pity. A man who commands respect understands the paradox Machiavelli knew well. Sometimes you must be willing to lose what you most desire to hold it in truth. The ruler who is terrified of revolt will find revolt at his gates. The man terrified of losing a woman will find her drifting away the moment she realizes he will tolerate anything to keep her. True power comes from the willingness to walk away, not in bitterness but in unshakable certainty that no person's approval is worth the sacrifice of your sovereignty. This terrifies some men, for they have built their entire sense of worth around the idea of being needed, being liked, being kept. They do not see that the woman who truly loves them would rather kneel beside a king than reign over a fool. Pity is poison to desire, It is the slow erosion of all that makes you admirable. If she pities you, she may comfort you with soft words, but her eyes will wander to the man who does not beg for comfort, and you will watch her pull away, confused by the betrayal, never realizing that you gave up the crown long before she left. Machiavelli would remind you that you can never control the loyalty of others by bending your spine for them. You can only inspire loyalty by standing so firm that they fear to lose what you are, for they know they can never replace it. The ruthless lesson is not that you must become a tyrant to be respected. It is that you must become the ruler of yourself first. Every test she gives you is a chance to reinforce your throne or surrender it. If you choose power, you may lose the faint-hearted, the disloyal, the manipulative, but you will keep the loyalty of those who crave strength. If you choose pity, you will keep no one for long, not even yourself. In the end, you do not get to decide whether a woman tests you. You do not get to decide whether life will throw storms at your gates. You get to decide only this: when the siege comes, do you stand firm as the fortress she can trust, or do you crumble and beg her to stay out of fear of the emptiness that follows? Machiavelli's ruthless mirror shows us what most would rather ignore. In the quiet shadows of every relationship, power and respect are the true currencies, not empty affection or sweet words whispered in fear. A woman's tests are not obstacles meant to be feared, but invitations to prove the iron hidden in your spine. Fail them, and you lose not just her loyalty but your own self-respect. Pass them, and you become the rare man she can trust, admire, and follow without doubt. Where most men surrender to the easy comfort of pity, the wise man, like Machiavelli's cunning prince, chooses the harder road of standing firm. Even when storms gather, even when loss threatens, he knows that the fortress within must never crumble. Love, when built on strength, becomes unshakable. The man who fears the test invites endless trials. Stand as the ruler of yourself first, and you will find that no test can unseat a king who never kneels.